Hey guys, how you doing today? I've got a day off today, and today's my last day off. And I've been complaining on this channel there hasn't been much news, and so Angus, Reid, God bless them, on January 27th releases their poll, and it's so comprehensive and it's so good. And I'm just going to dive right into it because if you want to follow along, the link is below. I highly advise giving us a pause for a second, opening it up, taking a look at it. I scroll down to the bottom. I think polls are a good test for what the population is feeling like right now, right? Lots of people say like polls are bad because they don't predict the outcome or any of that kind of stuff, but that's not what they're doing, right? Polls are not predictive. In fact, if you think about it, polls are actually a little behind, right? The attitudes of the populace, because essentially they're just asking everybody what they think, and asking a large enough portion of what they think that they believe that that's representative of the group. And I see that accurately. And so it's a little behind, in fact. And this can change and shift, and it changes and shifts all the time, and there's reasons for it, right? There's reasons why the opinion of the populace shift, and can shift rapidly. Like the famous Olivia Chow, John Tory flip. John Tory was here, Olivia Chow was here in the mayoral election. Olivia Chow responds to an open letter from Now magazine, and it really flipped everything for her. I think that was the moment where everything just kind of went wacha, because I think she really mishandled this opportunity given to her by Now magazine. Anyway, so events do affect the outcome of elections, and the populace doesn't really tune in until the beginning of the election anyway. So this is just like a beautiful snapshot what people are generally feeling right now and how they would kind of work right now. And there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. Federal politics. Liberals hold lead in vote intention as unfavorable views of CPC leader intensify. That is part of the overall picture for sure. Like, that's their headline. There's lots of other cool stuff happening in here, so we're going to dive in. I say scroll right down until you hit, please rank the issues facing Canada that you care about most. Please rank the issues facing Canada that you care about most. They're asking people, what do you care about most? What's the thing you care about the most? Number 1, 51% coronavirus, COVID-19 response. Makes sense. We're in the middle of a pandemic, right? The second thing is healthcare. So like at 38%. So people are just like, please make sure that everything's okay in COVID-19 response. Please make sure that healthcare is right up there. We need to be taking care of people. We need to be taking care of stuff. That's why stuff like the long-term care scandal right now is so scandalous, and why people are very interested in hearing more about that. The third one is the economy, right? The economy at 29%. I wish somebody would define what the economy is, because when I actually take a look at what I define the economy to be, I see a group of rich people playing casino with like our lives and and making sure that we can never get ahead, making sure the boot is on our back the entire time. Like, if that's the economy, 29% of the populace is like, yeah, we need to make sure that people are kept down. For sure. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. And of course, the economy coming in third, just edging out by 3 points, climate change, right? I am concerned that we'll burn off the face of the planet, but the fortunes of a handful of billionaires. The fortune of a handful of billionaires. And then the deficit, like, the deficit's at 22%. Here's me breaking apart the deficit propaganda, okay? I'm going to rip it apart in your brain. The deficit is a measure by which how much the government is involved in our lives, how much the government is involved in the wider economy, right? Conservatives like to have there be no deficit, or to remove the deficit, because they want to get rid of their competitor. That's why they do that. They know that the government can provide services more efficiently than they can. They're well aware of it. When I was growing up, they constantly said, no, you can't have a government program because that'd run me out of business. They said it all the time. And I wish I had had the foresight when I was younger to be like, doesn't that mean we should have them? Like, if you can't compete against them, that's the best that we have. And yet conservatives are continuously trying to convince you that free market solutions are the best way to do it, although this would just destroy us because of its efficiency and ability to provide for its citizens. Like that's literally their stated argument. So when people are like, oh, the economy, we need to worry about the economy, I'm like, just nationalize most things. Like, get rid of this nonsense. Get rid of Bell. Get rid of all. Like, why are we having monopolies? Why do we care about Bell at all? And their insipid nonsense PR campaigns. Like, let's talk. I care about your mental health. Give me your money. Like, fuck off. Fuck off. And income inequality, right under the deficit. So like 22% of the populace is like, I want the government out of our lives so we can sell ourselves to corporations. And then right below that, there's people are poor on the streets and are starving. Like, I wish it was just slightly higher, I guess. I just wish it was slightly higher, but this is how the populace is thinking right now. And I can make the argument that we're in an emergency, things are crazy, and so they're like, no, COVID, we've got to focus on COVID. And the headlines sort of reflect that, in my view. And what the liberals are doing sort of reflects that. The problem is that people don't realize that the income inequality poverty line is like COVID-19 response, right? Giving people a basic income, giving people a CERB is COVID-19 response. You want to kill this thing, you want to really clamp it down, give the workers the ability to just go home and chill out for a little while. Oh my goodness. At the same level as income inequality, jobs and unemployment, right? I think in people's minds, those two are actually the same thing, right? But they're not. Anyway. Housing affordability is also tied with this. So these three things on this three file, like, they're linked in cause and course, right? Of course, if you're living in poverty, you care about housing affordability, right? Of course, if you're living in poverty, you care about jobs, right? And they're all kind of this block that's right at the bottom. And it feels like, it just feels like the populace is disorganized in its thinking, right? That if every time the phone went down, people said, I want a basic income, and that's what they said, like, things would look differently. But are they giving the basic income as an option even, right? Taxes at 15%. People are going to care about taxes no matter what. Energy, national resources, pipelines, crime, public safety. These are all in like 10%. Right, crime, public safety is an interesting one to be at 10% right now, what with defund the police movement and all that. But this is the general attitude of Canadians. Okay, moving on. And how these trends shift? Pretty stable over time, honestly. Not huge shifts here. So this is what's interesting. Do you approve or disapprove of the performance of Prime Minister and Liberal Party leader Justin Trudeau? This is very interesting. Strongly approve, 11%. Okay? Strongly approve, 11%. Moderately approve, right? 39%. Giving it a total of 50%. Half the populace is like, yeah. But only 1 out of every 100, one out of every 10. Only 1 out of every 10 is like, yeah, Justin Trudeau. About 4 in 10 are just like, yeah, okay, good for you. Moderately disapprove, 17%. So about 2 in 10 are just like, really, you guys? And then 3 in 10 are like, you suck. And that's 3 times as much that are like on the other side, right? There's like 3 times as many people who are like, about Justin Trudeau than there are people being like, yeah, Justin Trudeau. And his support, what this shows you is that his support is very soft, right? 48% of the country disapproves of Justin Trudeau right now. That's almost half. And you got 3 who are just kind of like, I don't know. Justin Trudeau, I guess. They just start just like, whatever you say. So, like, this is polarization. This is huge polarization within the Liberal support base, within the Liberal Party itself, for Justin Trudeau, right? Like, it's like, I shouldn't say within the Liberal Party itself, within the populace. We're just completely split And the people who are split for Trudeau are kind of like, yeah, I guess. I feel like we could swing them the other way. Pretty easily. And of course, this is actually down for Trudeau. Do you approve or disapprove of the Prime Minister Liberal Party, Justin Trudeau? Oh, that's it. They're just showing me a different graph. My bad. Embarrassing. Unfavorable views of O'Toole rise. Okay, so we just did Justin Trudeau, right? The populace is just like, fuck this guy, or like, I guess, for the most part. So Aaron O'Toole only 6% of the populace is like very favorable, right? Most people are like 6%. So that's less than Justin Trudeau in this category, right? Favorable, 26%. So that's, again, less than Justin Trudeau in this category. Unfavorable, 23%. And then very unfavorable, 23%. So more people are like, O'Toole, than are like, even like, So there's like 30% favorability versus like 46% unfavorability, with the rest, 22%, being like, I don't know. I just got in, Aaron O'Toole, I don't know. He just got in. What's Aaron O'Toole doing? I don't really know. You're not tuning in to the Canadian Commie if you don't know about Aaron O'Toole. little pitch for me just there. Jagmeet Singh. Moving over to Jagmeet Singh. So, to recap, Justin Trudeau, we're kind of like this on him. We're like, oh! Aaron O'Toole, we're just like, that guy. Jagmeet Singh, 11% very favorable. That's the same level of favorability, right, on very favorable as Justin Trudeau, right? Very favorable. Favorable, 36%. So he's like right in the same category as Trudeau. Unfavorable, 22%, and then very unfavorable, 18%. So this guy is straight up in the same category as Justin Trudeau, where we're just like, except that Justin Trudeau only has 3% of the vote being like, I don't know, who's there? What's going to happen? Whereas Jagmeet Singh has 13%. So like 4 times the amount. A little over 4 times the amount of people just being like, I don't know, Jagmeet Singh. Let's see what he does. Those are people who are definitely going to concrete up their attitude in their minds come election time, right? That's why the 22% for Aaron O'Toole and the 13% about don't know, can't say, right? That's why that really, really matters. I hope this is interesting. I hope you guys are having a good time. Anyway. Yves Francois Blanchet, leader of the Bloc Québécois, is actually enjoying the highest favorability. Look at that. People really like this guy. I suspect in Quebec. But also his favorability is just like 30%. Slightly less in the favorable category, slightly more in the very, very favorable category. So if you're a supporter, you're more likely to be like, yeah, this guy. 20% in both unfavorable and very unfavorable, putting him right on par with the rest of them. With 16% of people being like, I don't know, he seems like an okay guy. So almost the exact same as, in terms of favorability, everybody's almost exactly the same except Aaron O'Toole, who's just in the toilet, right? And then Annamie Paul, honestly, in terms of like how it falls out, it's the same, but the numbers are actually smaller because most people are just like, I don't know, Annamie Paul. She's the new leader of the Green Party, right? Oh, she's the new leader of the Green Party. Have I heard anything about Annamie Paul? I don't know anything about Annamie Paul. So 50% of the populace is still making up their mind about Annamie Paul. And that's actually huge for the Green Party to understand and to know. 50%, dude. Like, if you're in the Green Party, looking at the Green Party, talking to anybody in the Green Party, 50% of the people you were talking to are just like, I don't know, Annamie Paul. I love it. They have like a net favorability, and they exclude the Liberals from it because I think they straight up just don't want to show that the Liberals they're really working hard on these charts, in my view, to not put the Liberals beside everybody else, right? They want us to have to parse it. Like, and right now they've got like, yeah, like they're breaking it up and into all kinds of weird sort of things. Anyway, it's polling. You can figure it out. Everybody's kind of on the same bandwidth except Aaron O'Toole, who's just like, right? Like they all have like their little graphs that the Liberals aren't part of for some reason. But if you put them in there, they'd basically be kind of where the NDP are in terms of their favorability of their prime minister. Here's where the rubber meets the road. Federal vote intention, right? 35% for the Liberal Party of Canada, 30% for the Conservative Party of Canada. So pretty close for some reason. Actually, I shouldn't say for some reason. I know the reason, right? I know the reason. The Conservative Party of Canada has they exist because of the abandonment of Alberta and the prairies by the Liberal Party, right? That the Liberal Party could very easily seize a lot of power in the area if they actually supported the people that lived there. They actually like tried to help them as their economy collapses underneath their feet, right? Anyway. And then you have the New Democratic Party of Canada, the NDP, 20%, right? And I think that's just largely because people are sort of, they're kind of suspicious of Jagmeet Singh generally, right? I think he's new. That's what it really comes down to, right? I don't mean suspicious, but like he's new. And so people are kind of looking at him and they're giving him this, right? And he's eventually, if he just keeps plugging at it, he's going to gain support. And you can actually see that here. In this particular, the graph right underneath it, right? It's federal vote intention over time. The over time is really cool to look at. And you can basically see that in February 2020, the Liberals were sort of floating around the mid-20s, occasionally would pop up to 30%. The pandemic starts and they jump up to 36%, and they're kind of in the mid-30s now. So because of the pandemic, they've actually gained essentially 10 points on their favorability, which makes sense. That's pretty normal, I think, in terms of when pandemics start, when they happen. Or wars are the same thing, right? The ruling class during times of crises the populace tends to favor them more. It's more difficult when a crisis is actually happening. It's more difficult to actually depose leadership. Specifically, like, and there is a logical rationale for it. People want a continuity. They want congruity. They don't want things to get lost in the weeds. They want to know that there's any plan going on, and they don't want to interrupt that plan in the middle of the crisis, right? They want they don't want to have to handle dealing with like a new government while simultaneously dealing with a pandemic, which is why Justin Trudeau is probably going to call a spring election, right? Because that's when the pandemic is actually going to be settling down. He wants to take this favorability that he has here and bring it into that election, right? He wants to into the election like that and earn enough votes from people who are just like, no, we need consistency through this period of time, right? And there's 10% of the population, as you can see by the numbers, that are willing to change their vote in order to do that. I think that Jagmeet Singh could take advantage of this. He could take advantage of sort of this. This is a very lethargic approach. Justin Trudeau's not offering us anything. He's just trying to ride on his kind of favorability, on his brand, essentially. He's not actually offering anything. And I think if Jagmeet Singh started really hammering on, we've got to offer you things, and framing the things that he's offering in the look of how this deals with the coronavirus, right? A basic income deals with the coronavirus, right? It helps with crises. And I don't think you can argue that. The Liberal government passed it in the first place. And the only reason they didn't roll it out fully is because they work for corporations and they didn't want it ultimately. Okay. And this actually shows you where the strongholds are, right? Where most people are voting Liberal are Ontario. Ontario, of course, to the traditional seat. BC gets 30%, though. Ontario gets 43%. BC gets 30%. That's right in line. And of course, as expected, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, like mid-teens to early 20s, right? Quebec going about 36%. So this is exactly what the map looks like. right? The prairies are strongly for the Conservative Party, which makes sense because the Liberals are abandoning the prairies, right? The Liberals, they don't really talk to the prairies, right? They don't even talk to the prairies. They leave the prairies to the Conservative Party. And the NDP support then is like basically a cut swath across the country of 20%, essentially. Quebec being the exception, which is odd considering they had the orange wave, right? But like NDP basically cut across the country at 20%. They need to build a stronghold somewhere. They really do. They need to like erect a stronghold. Because while they don't have the lows like exist in the Liberals and the Conservatives, because the Conservatives don't do very well in like BC or Quebec or Atlantic Canada, but NDP, right, are cut across the board. So it comes down to gamesmanship in this way. And then, of course, the Bloc Québécois only interesting in Quebec. Give me 1 second, guys. Sorry, my dog is losing his brain. Milo, come on, bud. Always with the puppy break. Always got to do the puppy break. Okay. Yeah, this is exactly right. Like, we've got age and gender, right? If you are an older man or an older woman, interesting, actually. If you're an older woman, you're more likely to vote Liberal. And if you're an older man, you're more likely to vote Conservative. And if you are a older man or woman, you're less likely to vote NDP by a long shot. If you're a younger woman, you're more likely to vote NDP than a man would. That's an interesting stat line right there. I pay more attention looking at that. But I'm running out of time. And okay, so we reached the end. Oh, and then they've got like a little like... Then they've got a little ask of like, given the COVID-19 pandemic, how comfortable would you be doing each of the following? Going to a polling place to cast your ballot in person? About 60% of the populace is like, I'm fine with that. Voting by sending your ballot through the mail. And 70% of the populace is like, yeah, I'd be fine with that too. Right? So... Polls, I love them. So let's finish this up with a little breakdown. People are uncertain about their leadership across the board. All of the leadership is weak because and I think it's just plainly that nobody believes that any of these people are actually going to try to help them, right? Nobody actually believes that electing any of these guys is going to actually lead to anything good, because the Conservatives are working as hard as they can to tear the place apart. The Liberals are doing everything they can to do nothing and look good doing it. And the NDP are not being strong enough on their policies and saying what they think they should do and what they need to do, right? They're not pounding on the table and they're not being like, we need a basic income. We need a basic income. Like, we need some way to transition away from this ridiculous scenario we found ourselves, right? And a basic income would be completely palatable to the populace, and I think a lot of people would support them. I think you get a lot of Liberals moving to there. I think you could get a lot of these young women convincing the old women to convince the old men to all jump ship and go, right? I think you could do that. Like, if I had a daughter and my daughter was saying, I'm voting NDP, I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to go along with that. Because I think you have to be absolutely out of your mind to not see what's happening in front of you right here, right? That things are collapsing and things are getting worse. And things will continue to get worse. I think you just have to, like, shut your brain off to think otherwise at this stage. Not to be rude, but, like, all of the stats are showing it. Poverty line is up. Everything is up. Like, it's a crisis. We're in a crisis. And the Liberals don't seem to be wanting to address it. And the Conservatives will make it worse. So, these voting intentions can change, and they can change very quickly, right? And it's fascinating to see how they shift and how they change through time. These Angus Reid polls are always useful to look at. Also because they really percolate the brain and give you a very clear and honest look at how people are thinking of things. So when you start talking to people, right, chances are very good. Like, if you are pro in Jagmeet Singh, right, you got a 50-50 shot of meeting somebody who's going to be like, Jamie Singh, I don't know. You got like a 23% chance of meeting this guy. I don't know, Jamie Singh. I don't know anything about Jamie Singh. Anyway, so it doesn't matter where you are, right? Everybody's dealing with this kind of like split opinion on their leader. With Aaron O'Toole being the one that needs to dig out of the biggest hole, but having a solid consolidated base, because no one else is talking to the prairies except the NDP badly. Okay, guys, this is going to be the end of me. Good luck out there. Do what you need. Smoke what you can. High five an ape. Rock a star. Fly to the moon. Love your neighbor. Love your neighbor. Yeah, love your neighbor. Oh my God, yeah. All right. Good luck. We're going to need it.